The other thing that did happen is that, Aaron Rodgers basically came out and said he wants to play for the Jets. Here's the thing that people have to understand. There are 32 teams in the NFL. There are only 31 owners There are 31 owners because Green Bay doesn't have an owner. So you have like a little private fiefdom with Mark Murphy, their president, and with Brian Gutekunst, their GM. As a matter of fact, I think in June or July, they have, their shareholder meeting where about 8,000 people show up. And it's like a little bit of a goofy thing. It's like Christmas in July, and it's right before training camp, and they give the state of the team. And they act as if they are the owners, when in fact they're not. They're just the stewards of the franchise. And so Woody Johnson, there's nobody for him to call. Sure. In other words, if there was something going on, say, between, I don't know, he and the Dallas Cowboys, and Dallas Cowboys were hemming and hawing, Woody Johnson could call up, Jerry Jones and say, hey, Jerry, look, your quarterback's been there for 18 years. He's made you, $1 billion. You raised money off of his back. He's played great for you and everything else. There's really no reason to hold up this trade. He wants out. We want him. Let's move on. So you can move on with your team. We can move on with our team. And what we're going to give you is we'll swap first-round picks. Maybe we'll give you a second-round pick and a conditional third pick, and let's call it a day. I mean, this is a 40-year-old quarterback who you don't know is going to play here 2 years. So the Jets can't go crazy with what the compensation is back to Green Bay. And I've been telling you that now for, weeks. So, whatever Brian Gutekunst's, ego is telling him, or Mark Murphy's ego is telling them, and making the Jets and Aaron Rodgers sweat this thing out all the way until the draft is it's ridiculous. I mean, you got to realize you don't want him. He doesn't want to play there for you. Move on. It's been 18 years. It's been a great 18 years, and he'd like to play for the Jets. So, unfortunately for Woody, there's really nobody for him to call.
But what about Mark Murphy? Why can't he call him?
He's the president. Like, in other words, if it's a singular owner, like whoever the owner may be, the owners realize that they're all about making deals. That's why they're billionaires.
Sure.
So they're all making deals. These guys up there in Green Bay, it's their fiefdom. And Mark Murphy is, he's going to be dug in, and Gutekunst is going to be dug in. And it's got to be.
For what reason, though? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'll tell you why. None of this makes any sense. To me, it's ego. To me, it's not about the Jets right now. It's not about the Jets. It's about Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. It's 18 years. It's an ugly divorce, and they're trying to get through it. But those guys can make Aaron Rodgers sweat a little bit, because I'm sure he's been a pain in the ass to them over the last 3 to 4 years. There was a report out there that, he was advocating for Gutekunst's firing and all that kind of crap. So there's all that machismo going on and all the ego crap that goes on, between, the people in Green Bay. It really has nothing to do with the Jets other than, is Joe Douglas and Woody Johnson, are they going to get a little bit nervous and then offer a little bit more than this guy is worth? I mean, like, my argument, it wouldn't even be an argument, but my negotiation back to Brian Gutekunst is like, listen, Brian, you weren't sure he was coming back this year at all. None of us were until he went into the darkness retreat and then came out and said, okay, I want to play and I want to play for the Jets. That doesn't mean next year when we're sitting here that he's going to want to continue to play for us. He may just up and retire next year, so we can't go crazy with the compensation that you want. Be realistic. Understand here. And you're trying to sell, like when you go to sell your house,
you
think your house is worth a certain amount of money, and then somebody comes in and offers you $50,000 less, because they believe that's what they can afford and that's what they think your house is worth. You could either sit there and wait for somebody else.
The problem is there's nobody else.
Well, which in this case, there is nobody else.
Yeah.
So you would end up probably taking the deal and moving on because you want to get your life going and you want to be able to move forward. So I would just think, whatever the egos between, Aaron Rodgers and Gutekunst and Mark Murphy are, those guys have got to come to grips and realize, that, you got to move on and eventually you got to run your team. And, Jordan Love's your quarterback. I would think that this will happen before the draft because I do believe that the Jets will be willing to swap first-round picks. I do believe that.
It's only a 2-spot difference, right?
Yeah, but that's akin to a third-round draft choice.
Okay.
With this mathematical numbering system that they have with what's worth what. So, that's like moving up, that's a trade. And then giving a second rounder, if that's what it end up is, that's a trade. And then, of course, you could do a conditional third rounder depending on, the AFC Championship game, the Super Bowl, and whether or not he's coming back. So that part of the compensation is relatively easy. Now it's just about egos in Green Bay. It's not, like I said, it has nothing to do with the Jets. It's all about Aaron Rodgers and Gutekunst and Murphy. That's what it's all about.
Those guys weren't there, as Aaron Rodgers explained, when he first got to Green Bay, and really nobody is there except for one advanced scout when he got there. So it's a different regime. But I believe what he said to be true, meaning that, hey, I'm one of the best players in franchise history. You don't want me playing for you anymore, so do the right thing already. This is ridiculous.
I kind of agree with that.
Yes.
But I know Aaron's been,
I know he's been a pain in the neck,
right.
But, I mean, come on. That means you should want to get rid of him quicker and just move on from this.
Yeah, they will. Eventually they will. I mean, you'd like to think that it would happen sooner than later, but those guys, again, it's their fiefdom. When they have these shareholder meetings and about 8,000 to 10,000 people show up and they sit there and they say, well, this is, this is the way our team is. This is what we're doing. They have to explain to these fans, why they traded Aaron Rodgers and all this other crap. And, that's still months away, but it's such a unique thing. And the way that, like, the Green Bay Packers, when I played, like I told you, we played games in Milwaukee. That wasn't Lambeau as we know it today.
Sure.
And the only reason this is Lambeau as we know it today is because of two quarterbacks, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Now, they've had, front office people and coaches go through there that have been a big part of that success as well. But the run between Favre and Rodgers is what's built rebuilt Lambeau Field.
It's 30 years we're talking about.
The Packers Hall of Fame.
Yep.
They're building a brand new practice facility, or maybe they've already done that. They're building a whole thing called Titletown there. When they needed money, how about this? When they needed money to be able to sign some of their players, what do? They call their shareholders and try to get their shareholders to buy more shares for $300 a share or to get more people, and they raise $65 million by doing that.
Yeah, pretty easy.
That's why this is like a really unique thing when you're dealing with the Packers. It's a little bit different, or a lot different than dealing with any of the other 31 teams, because they don't really have an owner to talk to.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I can understand that. What I don't understand is why you really think that Joe Douglas and the Jets are going to relent, because if you don't trade Aaron Rodgers, there's no other suitors that he's going to sit there and count against your cap. It's the dumbest thing in the world.
I don't think they're going to relent. I think that they're going to hold fast.
There's no reason to.
And as they get a little bit closer to the draft, because after the draft, then the compensation becomes virtually nothing.
Right.
I mean, forget it. We're not, we're going to do it now. Let's do it now. Let's get it over with. This is what we're willing to give you. And we think it's a fair, offer. I think it's a fair offer. And I certainly would not relinquish a hard number one draft choice in this case, because I just don't know if this guy's going to play more than 1 year. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that.
I would think that when they had those conversations out there in Malibu, that he probably said something along the lines of, I probably want to play more than 1 year, because I don't think the Jets would be going this nuts and focusing in on Aaron Rodgers if it was all in for 1 year.
Well, he's all in, and unless he gets hurt. And that's a big thing that could easily happen. If that happens,
well, it happened last year.
Right. You have to protect your franchise if you're Joe Douglas, and he will. I mean, he's not going to relent to this.
They lost out on a couple offensive linemen they were in on, including Orlando Brown Jr.
Orlando Brown, right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're counting on Mekhi Becton coming back and being healthy.
Which is kind of a risk, no? I mean,
well, sure it is. Everything's a risk.
Yeah, but when it's a guy who really hasn't played any games, I know he's in shape, but getting out there and competing and staying on the field, I mean, he's a guy I don't know if you can necessarily count on. I mean, it's less of a risk when you bring in a guy who makes a ton of starts every year.
Right. And I could also, I guarantee Jet fans out there, Aaron Rodgers is not wearing number 12. He's not wearing number 12.
He's not. Forget that. You guarantee
you that? Guarantee you that he's not going to wear number 12. He's not a dummy. He's one of the smartest guys who has ever played in the league. He's very thoughtful in that regard, understands history, understands who Joe Namath is, understands what the Jet history is and why that number is so important. And even though Joe said you can wear it, Len Dawson told Joe Montana he could wear his number 16 when he got to Kansas City. And Joe Montana said, no, that's your number. That's your history. I'll do the different. I'll wear a different number. So I would think that, Aaron is either going to wear 8, which is what he wore in college, which would mean he would have to buy that off of Elijah Moore, assuming Elijah Moore's still here, or he'll go with number 10, which is available because Braxton Berrios got cut.
That's right.
So it's either 8 or 10.
It's either 8 or 10?
Yeah, it's not going to be 12.
So I know you've been waiting to get your jersey, and you're saying that you've now narrowed it down to 2 numbers. Why don't you just get him to send either 8 or 10?
Maybe he'll change it on me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's 8 or 10.
You think or you know it's 8 or 10?
I believe it's 8 or 10.
You believe that it's 8 or 10?
Yes.
All right. I mean,
but it ain't going to be 12.
It's not going to be 12. He didn't give he gave a wishy-washy answer to the McAfee guys on that about as far as
he is not going to be wearing 12.
I know, I hear you. I'm just saying
it
that's what
would
he
be
did.
like somebody wearing 12 in Packer history after, he's gone. Now listen.
They might give it to Jordan Love next year. How much they hate him.
No, Aaron Rodgers has a much better career than Joe Namath did. They're not giving 12 out or 4 for that matter, or 15 in Green Bay. That's just not happening. So the same thing here, and he'll respect the history and what Joe Namath accomplished, because when Joe won the Super Bowl, it basically was the beginning of the NFL. It was like, okay, the AFL now can beat an NFL team, and that's where it all kind of started, right in and around there. And so there is significant history that's attached to that number 12 in Jet history.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, Aaron Rodgers played a lot longer time, and you look at the numbers, it's crazy. You really can't compare eras, but, the impact that Joe Namath had on the Jets is one of the biggest impacts that one single man has had on any franchise in the history of the NFL.
Entire league.
Yeah, right.
The entire
exactly.
league, right.
Yep.
So I would just say that, it will happen eventually. They'll get, Green Bay will become realistic and understand that they're trading a 40-year-old quarterback, and there's only one team that is willing to make the trade, and they'll come to their senses and swallow their ego and worry about their team moving forward, as opposed to sticking it to Aaron Rodgers. This is like idiotic children's play where 2 owners, they would make a phone call, they'd get it done, and it would be done and it would be over with, because the owner realizes that they got to move forward with their team. They can't worry about the past. They got to worry about the future. And if this is Jordan Love's team, let's make it Jordan Love's team. As long as they keep playing these games with Aaron Rodgers, then internally it's still not Jordan Love's team. They gotta change everything, the mindset, and move on.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.